The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Quiero que se acabe esta rumba. Uno, dos, tres, let go. Fire, fire, vamos a ganar otra vez. Fire, fire, no.
Hello and welcome to another special World Cup edition of Soccer to the Max. As well, that song is very appropriate as this group is going to be fire to talk about with so much going on. That was the Telemundo official World Cup song for this World Cup. So you were here, Jay Valdin and Michael Bruns Positivo, quite a lot if you're listening to the Telemundo or watching the Telemundo broadcast, wherever you are that you're looking at it. We'll get to the other ones, assuming later. I'm trying to avoid the Will Smith one so bad because it's so bad. But, yeah, we'll get to that eventually. But, all right, yes, we are talking about Group D here today. This is, you can either call it the Group of Death or you can call it the Group of Life because any of these four teams could practically go anywhere in this group. And the teams are sort of rather evenly matched if you look at it. I think the outlier is Iceland. Will they be able to repeat what you got at Euro 2016? But they kept a lot of things the same. And, I mean, everybody else has got question marks that we'll get into. I have Argentina. Erik has, I think it's Croatia and Nigeria. And Rachael has Iceland. So it will be interesting to talk about all four of these teams. Guys, this one's like racking my brain. We don't have to do predictions yet. We did them as part of the Fox match predictor and the ESPN. Well, not the match predictor, the bracket predictor. And ESPN has a match predictor with some very specific predictions, which are really funny. So if you haven't checked out the ESPN FC one, you should, because some of them are going to make you bust out laughing at some points. But guys, I mean, this is a group that literally we're going to go through these teams and who's playing and whatnot, but I don't know. I'm not secure with anything I just chose.
Okay, but before we get going to brass tacks here, I have to say, does the Telemundo World Cup theme have an official video to it?
I think so.
Okay, I'm going to need to investigate this video to see if they did it right. There's going to be some very specific things that I'm going to look for, and I'm actually preparing for disappointment. When it comes to the actual football, especially with this group, I'm pretty sure, unless you have some sort of a gift, unless you're the man who got stuck here from the year 64-91, whatever you think about this group, you're going to probably be wrong. So, yeah, you won't be alone.
Yeah, certainly. And, I mean, I watched, speaking of things that you're looking for, I just watched the Brazil World Cup commercial? And they compared it to, I had a lot of things from, like, the 1998 one where they're in the airport, like, kicking the ball around and stuff, which is awesome still to this day, but that one's pretty great, too, the one for this year. So if you don't feel like Brazil's going to do something, watch that commercial and try to think that again. But I guess we should get this started, Rachael. Iceland had a part-time dentist as their coach for Euro 2016. He's now the full-time manager. And, of course, everybody knows them for the Viking clap, but they have some players that you should be paying attention to as well.
Yeah, and, I mean, Iceland, this was no cakewalk to get qualified for the World Cup. They had a really good 2017. They only lost in 2017. They only lost one World Cup qualifying match, and that was a 1-0 loss against Finland. But they won big World Cup qualifying matches against Kosovo, Croatia, who is in the World Cup as well, Ukraine, Turkey, and another 2-0 win against Kosovo. They had a really interesting road to the World Cup. And Sean, like you said, they have some really eye-catching players, none which I'm sure anybody can pronounce except for our pronunciation guide as a human being, Erik. But they have the talent to do something, and that's upset. And one thing that I always found funny about Iceland qualifying for the World Cup was that, and this is kind of to tie in our own area of expertise, the U.S. men's national team, my goodness, what would have happened if Aaron Johansson didn't switch to the United States? Like, I'm sure he's probably watching right now like, oh my God, like they made it and we didn't. But I think this team has a lot of underdogs on it, and they are without a doubt the underdog of this group of the whole World Cup. They're the Cinderella story, and you just want to root for them. They, like I said, it wasn't a cakewalk to get to World Cup qualifying. Their preparations for the World Cup have started off a little bit rocky. They will play on June 7th against Ghana, another team that did not make the World Cup, but they just lost 3-2 against Norway, another team that didn't qualify. So they're definitely going to want to pick up a win against Ghana so they can get some form of confidence under their belt. I couldn't even imagine what would happen if they didn't win. That's going to put a big damper on their spirit before the World Cup.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much that's gonna dampen their spirit, considering they had 20 to 30% of their entire nation go to the Euros. I'd imagine they're going to also show up in Russia to support their team head on for this. Iceland, of course, is the smallest nation in the World Cup to ever qualify. So you talk about underdogs. The entire freaking nation is an underdog itself. So this team, if they can upset any one of these teams in this group, I think and look, they already have Croatia having been in their qualifying group, so they're going to know each other very well. That game itself is going to be, I think it's almost at the end of the calendar, so you might be looking at two teams trying to get into second place or maybe in first place, considering how the other teams look. But one of the problems I think that Iceland has, and who knows, maybe he was just gearing up for the World Cup himself. Gylfi Sigurdsson didn't play for half the year for Everton. He's their main guy. I mean, you think they can do it without him if he's not totally fit, Rachel?
I don't know about that. I don't think so, because I just think that there's too much question mark in this whole group. I mean, yes, you have Argentina, who, as we all know, is Argentina, and they can squash whoever they want. But Croatia and Nigeria, there's two big question marks there when it comes to playing against Iceland. So that's a good question. If anything, I think they would make it by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, certainly. It could come down to a three-way war going on between all those teams. And if Argentina slips up, which is very possible, you could see them doing the same thing. But yeah, this is going to be the team I think a lot of people that are, U.S. men's national team supporters are going to be rooting for. A lot of people that are just, you hear their story and you're going to go, oh, we want to root for this team. We want to go for this team. So, yeah, could they be willed on by so many people in the stadium and outside of the stadium to pick up some results that aren't your way? But I think what surprises you the most about this team is they're so united, and they play united too. They're very organized. Maybe it seems like they're parking the bus a little bit at times, but really what they're doing is they're just waiting to lull you into the way they play and get you going. Erik, Gotcha. We'll cover it for you here, but
Yep, I'm good.
you're good. You're good. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah. And I was thinking about this, and the best thing isn't, oh, Ireland's going or Iceland is going to lull you to sleep. Oh, they're parking the bus. No, they're kind of, I would say, like a rope-a-dope. It's just controlling, absorbing the pressure, and then as you get towards the end of the first half, and in those last 20 minutes of the game, they strike, and then all of a sudden you're on your back foot. And I think the united aspect comes from not just how they play, but how they develop players. They've put in very strong youth programs. That's led to very strong building of football as a sport. That led to more kids playing, more development, etc., etc., etc. And I think they're going to rally behind that even more in saying, okay, we're still somewhat fairly close to home. We can adapt to this. We've been here before on a big stage when nobody expected us. Let's go do this again.
yeah, certainly, and I think that's going to be a hallmark of this entire group, except for one team, and we'll get to that. Whole one team is a lot of these teams like to control and be on the front foot. Who's going to be willing, aside from a certain African team, to kind of seed that so that they can go on the counter? And I teased it already, but Nigeria is one team that is totally fine with, you could take all the control you want to, because we're here to just absolutely murder you on the other end with all of our attacking talent. Also because we got to cover for our defensive problems. But that's another case, Eric. I mean, let's not play around either. Nigeria has some players you might want to watch out for too.
Now, with Nigeria, this is a very, very kind of schizophrenic team, because in doing my research, not just for their roster, but their friendlies and everything, it's like, how exactly does this happen? Because if you look at their schedule going back to 2017, World Cup qualifiers, shaky. African Cup of Nations, shaky. That's with a lot of their top European-based talent. Yet, you go to the tournaments like the African Nations Championship or the West African Football Union Championship, where it's your domestic players. This team is insanely hard to beat. They got to the final of both of those tournaments. So I'm like, how were they able to even manage that makeup and determine things just setting up their roster? Because we saw them even in their friendly against Atletico Madrid. As you said yourself, sit and wait, we'll pounce what we need to. They made that a good match, even though it was a 3-2 loss. But with a lot of these others, results have been kind of hard to come by.
Well, I mean, they were in the group of death in Africa, and they beat Zambia, Cameroon, Algeria. They weren't undefeated there domestically. So they have some pedigree coming and playing together.
Like, true, and this is something that's developed over a while. I mean, I'm curious in seeing this, how this is going to compare to the last, Super Eagles team, where I actually saw them, oddly enough, on their send-off match against the U.S. going towards the 2014 World Cup. It was a really fun experience. But how can I possibly say? I'm curious to see how far that pedigree will take them and how they can unlock the magic that the domestic Eagles had in their runs, and see how they can apply it here in the World Cup.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's going to have to come from... I can't believe we're still talking. I mean, I can't believe he's 31 for one. I feel like he should be older. John Obi Mikel is still out there playing. He's going to be one of their main guys, along with Wilfred Ndidi, who plays for Leicester. they're going to be kind of the two guys, the wall in front of the back line that you don't want to talk. You don't want that team to get to. You want everything to be in front of them because you have issues on that back line. And why not? Because you have so much vibrant, young attacking talent that can go, maybe not clinically finish, but they can go and be a terror for those opposing defenses that none of them are like what I would consider stalwart defenses, including many of them, these other teams having goalkeeping issues.
And not all, and especially when you talk about that young talent, look in particular at Ahmed Musa. I mean, 25, 13 goals, which isn't bad, especially for already having 71 caps. And another advantage is he's based in Russia, playing for CSKA Moscow, so a little bit of a bonus. He's like, all right, this is the climate, this is how we deal with keepers, etc., etc.
And you got Khaleesi Iheanacho as well. He's going to provide some support there. You've got the Arsenal's Alex Iwobi, Chelsea's Victor Moses. So if all that talent could come together and just kind of form a wall in front of the defense, then they'll be okay. Obviously, they're going to need their goalkeeper to come up big at times as well, which I think he's sort of an unknown at this point. I think it's a lesser of a bad unknown compared to what you have with, say, Argentina that they're going through. But, yeah, I mean, for me, I feel like Nigeria is also very possibly could upset. And they know Argentina very well. This is like the second or third time they've been put with them in a group. Second in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, this is, all these games are going to be super, super fun to watch. And whoever can just pull off one upset, it might be enough to get to that first or second spot. Before we go to your last team, Eric, I guess we have to talk about, a lot of people are going to think of them as the favorites. And when I sit here and examine this team, I don't know. And even the great one himself, the GOAT, Lionel Messi, says they aren't the favorites. Maybe he doesn't feel as confident in his team like many people do. I mean, you've got the bad, not just the goalkeeping issue that happened just very recently with Sergio Romero going down, having an injury. He is not going to be the leader in this World Cup that he's been in the last two. So you're possibly having a completely uncapped goalkeeper coming in and playing, because Willy Caballero, you can't really trust him either. So you might be looking at Franco Armani coming in and being the goalkeeper instead. Then you're looking at, in defense, no one here is sitting making me go, oh yeah, remember Marcos Rojo, Eric? He does wonderfully over there for Manchester United. We watch him every week. Federico Fazio was awful at Tottenham. He's okay at Roma.
I mean, if you had that kind of greatness in Manchester United, we wouldn't have had the crap running that we would have.
No, and not to mention Nicolas Otamendi is probably the most overrated defensive back there is in the entire Premier League over there for Manchester City. And what makes this so funny is that apparently Sampaoli is considering just doing the Barcelona squad with these players, and I'm going, oh no, this is like we talked about Nigeria needing a wall in front of their defense. Argentina might need a wall from the forwards in front of everybody else. Like, Javier Mascherano might still be playing on this team. Like, that dude is old. He should not.
Hey, if he still has enough in him to do anything close to what he did in Brazil, I'd be fine with that.
But I don't know. I just don't think that's going to happen for him. But
Well, think of it this way. This could either be one of the greatest surprises in World Cup history or a reason that Messi retires for real this time internationally.
oh yeah, I mean, but it's going to be because of and we've already seen what happens with Argentina, right? It's Lionel Messi and everybody else, and you've got Agüero there, and they brought Gonzalo Higuain again, so he can just totally miss something, and everybody can hate him once again. Angel Di Maria's here, Paulo Dybala is here. I mean, again, you've got some fantastic attacking talent. The rest of the team is scary at how mediocre they could possibly wind up being and costing this team. But you'd have to think with all the pressure, all of the 3 years in a row they have failed at finals, coming into 2017, and then coming into this with that thought of, look, Messi's only 31, he could play another World Cup, but Lord, if they get so close again and lose, you have to think that might just be enough torture for him to go, you know what? That's it. Just not going to happen.
Especially because now Ronaldo has a trophy in his case.
Right, yeah. So that's another one. But I still think it's going to be very hard to think that Argentina doesn't get out of this group. But we've talked about 3 teams here, and all of them are very close together as far as team structure, being organized, especially the 2 of the 4. And you have Argentina that you don't know what team's going to show up. And that might absolutely hurt them. And we still haven't even talked about the other team in this group that Iceland knows very well because they were in the same qualifying group, Croatia. They have some coaching issues and also some corruption problems that might get in their way. But if they don't, Eric, I mean, they have a quadret of players that I think almost anybody that watches European soccer knows who they are.
I mean, and not just anybody that watches European soccer. Let's face it, they made themselves the forefront of the friendly against Brazil. And let's face it, I mean, hey, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the match. Hopefully you have by now. If it's not for a certain number 10 coming off of the bench, Croatia's looking at a very favorable result against the Seleção. So this is a team to where, yeah, they don't always make it pretty in developing an attack, but they don't have to. And that alone, I mean, it could at the very least see them through, and then whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about 2 guys that play for Barcelona and Real Madrid, and Luka Modric and Ivan Rakitic.
Mm-hmm.
And even Mateo Kovacic as well plays for Real Madrid. And Milan Baji might be one of those guys you're looking at Fiorentina and going, wow, even he's doing ridiculous stuff. I mean, so, and then you got Mario Mandzukic, even Perisic, 2 guys that are, knocking out of the park in Italy. Nikola Klasinic as well at Milan. So you've got stars here in your spine of your team. I worry about them defensively. That's where I worry about them is you're having to rely on Lovren, for God's sakes.
Well, not just Lovren.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not forget Matej Mitrovic from the powerhouse that is Club Brugge in Belgium. No disrespect to Belgium, but honestly, your league, there's a reason why your stars play elsewhere. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, Chorluka is a steady hand, but that's about all I can muster up for for them defensively, and they're probably going to have to rely on their goalkeeper Subasic a bit to make some saves there defensively. But again, they're a team that likes to control the ball, pass it, try to find Mandzukic when you can, and as you saw, they played Brazil well. There's that chance they could nick some points, get a draw with Argentina, get a win against one of the other two, get another draw, and the 5 points is enough. I mean,
Yeah, this is a team that could, if things go the right way, they can, just with that scenario, easily get second. And who knows? Maybe 5 points, it could become 6, it could become 7, and then you're talking potentially group winners. And imagine how that would throw the knockout stages into chaos. So, this is just another example of one of those teams where you're right in the neighborhood of where the World Cup is. So they have a lot of built-in advantages on top of their talent. It's like, would it really shock you?
it wouldn't. I worry about their coach only having like a few games of experience with the entire team after he basically took control of them before the Ukraine game. They beat Greece, which isn't that big of a task considering, the disparity in team there. And now you're going into some friendlies and the World Cup itself. I mean, that's something to consider, though.
It's something to consider, but it's not like though they had the best of runs even before that Ukraine match. You're talking win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, draw. Something had to have been done. Now you're getting something to where it's like a little bit stabilizing.
Yeah, certainly. I think you think it's stabilizing, but again, we're going to have to wait for the World Cup to see if it actually works or not. And that's what makes this group so difficult is we just gave you basically why any of these teams could falter and why any of these teams could wind up at the top. I mean, Nigeria has defensive issues. Croatia has defensive issues. And can Mandzukic actually play the same way we've seen him do at Juventus? Iceland, can they repeat the Euros? Again, can Sigurdsson get healthy? Argentina, it's all about Messi. Can he be the maestro one more time? I mean, his club form would tell you, yes, he can. But national team is a whole different deal, So, I mean, he did it last go around, but that's 4 years ago. Some of these Argentina has one of the oldest teams in the entire World Cup. That's something to consider too. Just so many question marks, Rachel. I mean, we're not making official predictions yet, but I mean, like, what makes you want to lean towards one team over the other?
I think it's just the fact that it's so wide open. And I think another thing about this World Cup that's this group is that, injuries are inevitable. You don't want to see them happen. But, like, that's certainly going to help change the game in this group as well. Like, if a key player gets injured, then a team, we saw it with Brazil back in 2014 when Neymar got injured. It's so wide open. I want to lead towards Iceland because they're the Cinderella story, but if there's an injury that happens, it's hard to bounce back.
Yeah, certainly injuries. The Champions League showed us how unfair the goalkeeping position could be. One gaffe, and that's the end of your World Cup. It might come down to something like that. It might come down to a crazy VAR decision. It might come down to a red card. With many of these guys, one Marcos Rojo that we talked about, he's very fiery and likely to get you one.
Hey, his name is Rojo. That should tell you enough.
Exactly. Exactly. It could come down to a lot of things. That margin is so tight. So that's what makes this group so interesting. You'll hear us give official predictions in not too far from now, for a week from now. But man, I dare you to go to that official predictor and put two teams on that list. You might be completely wrong by the time the first set of group games is over. That's how crazy this group is. Anything else you guys want to say about any of these teams here before we vamos?
I just want Argentina to lose.
Let the Viking chant reign.
Yeah, that's gonna
Bye,
be
Messi.
fun to watch.
Bye, Messi. Bye-bye.
Oh, you know, the sad thing though is Argentina is that much of a question mark that they could literally get whooped big time by any team that they face in the knockout rounds because of all those question marks. So that's the thing. Do you want them to get out of the group and then suffer that? You know, that'd be a terrible way for Messi to go out. Maybe just go out in the group stage and maybe it's Spain 2014 all over again. But yeah, like I said, we'll make our predictions soon enough. I hope you enjoyed our little preview of Group D. We'll be doing Group E tomorrow. And we'll have to do these pretty quick because, again, the final prediction show happens next Sunday. And then on the 14th, it all begins. The World Cup for almost a month, gonna be ruling the world with coverage from near and far and everybody paying attention. But alright, until the next time we do one of these, if you like what you heard, subscribe Soccer to the Max or the whole W2 Network. You get everything that we have to offer you. Visit W2Net.com as well. We'll be doing a written group predictions there and perhaps doing something for the World Cup one way or another. I'll still have to figure that out. And of course, go to Last Word on Soccer where you get Rachel's wonderful breakdowns of NWSL recaps. She even broke down the U.S. men's national team loss to Ireland, which we'll get into in our regular episode we're about to do, and even more from her and from everybody else over there. So make sure you check them out. And until next time, we'll see you later, everybody.
Screw you, Tour de France. Peace.
Bye.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.